what we do need to talk about with that, the focus for the first week, or the first phase, because the PTS is going to be happening in a lot of phases. Phase 1, while it won't have the balancing that we want in there just yet, it will have a lot of bugs that we need to find and crush. So following that, there will be other phases as well. So that second phase, there's going to be a lot of balance that we're talking about. That's both PVE and PvP. Good thing then that I've got Redstorm on the line so we can talk about a lot of those balancing things, and we'll talk about a lot more because they are focused on a lot of the PvP stuff. Let me just see if I have them on the line. This should all work. Terry, Ryan, you're going to magically appear.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right.
I can hear you, and we're gonna be pulling you up on the screen in just a sec. How's everything going over there in North Carolina?
Wonderful. It's like 80 degrees. We love it.
Pollen.
It's perfect. And
80
pollen. A lot of
degrees.
pollen.
Yeah.
Nice to see your beautiful face.
It's good to see you too.
Thank you.
Everyone, for the people who are either new to the community and don't know who you are, Terry and Ryan, would you mind giving us a bit of a rundown of who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Terry Spear. I'm the creative director here at Redstorm Entertainment, working on the Division 2. Right?
And I'm Ryan Liebscher. I am a game systems engineer here at Redstorm, working on the Division 2.
Nice, Ryan. This is your first time on the stream, if I'm correct.
It is.
How you feeling?
Excited.
All right. No, excited is good.
Yeah.
We wanted to kick things off. Obviously, we've got a lot to get through today, so I'm going to try and get the ball rolling. Balance has been a huge conversation in the community. Can you tell us with TU3, what are some of the focuses that Redstorm are working on as it pertains to balance?
Absolutely. I mean, first I have to say it's been a fun 35 days, right?
Yeah,
It's been
we forget
fantastic.
that.
Yeah, holy cow.
That in that 35 days, being able to pay attention to player trends and, of course, the mounds of analytic data that we have, and then, of course, listening to the enthusiastic and passionate community on their opinions and whatnot. So over the 35 days, we've been working hard with things like normalization, things like dark zone tuning, things like exotic weapons,
Yep.
and conflict. So all things PvP that I think a lot of people are interested in hearing about.
Yeah, very, very interested in hearing about. So with the balance update that will be coming in the PTS, what are some of the things that you've been focusing on in particular?
We can start with normalization if you'd like, Hamish.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like as good a place to start as any.
Okay. I've got a whole sheet of paper here. I'm going to be like one of those reporters that has
Me too.
all the information.
There's a lot of stuff.
There's a
There's
lot
a
of
lot of
Just
stuff.
in.
Yeah. So we'll start with normalization. Like I said, I think the first thing we've done a lot, but the first thing is we're now normalizing to max world tier, so gear score 500. I think that's the first thing we'll just get out of the way is we are normalizing to gear score 500. And there's a couple other things. Ryan, you want to touch on those?
Yeah, so previously we were taking your stats that you had rolled on your items and we were pushing them a little bit towards the middle. This time, or with this patch, we're going to be respecting your actual items rolls. So if you found an item with really high crit chance, it's going to have really high crit chance when it's normalized. The other thing is that we are going to be using your non-normalized skill power when using your skill mods to unlock skill mods. So if you have a min-max build and you've got a ton of skill power, when we're normalized, you're going to have the mod you've unlocked.
So all my stuff's active.
All it's active all the time.
Hooah! That's awesome. So we're respecting the build itemization.
Yep.
And all my mods and skills. I mean, all that stuff, all the talent, it'll all be active.
Right.
Awesome. The second thing is we're continuing to tune the PvP damage, the specific PvP overrides, right? You want to talk about those?
Well, the first thing is the global PvP modifiers. So we have the PvP damage modifier, which I think currently is 70%, and we're going to be tuning that down to 40%.
Which means what for our user?
Well, it's going to bring the kill times a little bit more in line with what you experience when you were playing PvE content.
Gotcha.
So you have a little bit more time to react, that sort of thing. The second thing is we're going to be increasing the skill damage modifier from 20% to 25%. So it's not a huge increase, but it should bring them, make them a little more useful in normalized play.
Right. So essentially, what we're talking about is we're making fights last a little bit longer, so you have a little more time to react in PvP combat. Skills, while we're staying away from skills that one-shot players, skills will now be effective and will definitely swing the tide of PvP combat.
Yeah,
so that's what we're looking at.
yeah.
So those are big, huge changes to normalization.
The second thing, we are now going to be tuning weapons, specific weapons and specific weapon archetypes with PvP modifiers as well. So like we could be buffing assault rifle damage by some percent. I think we have increased the assault rifle damage.
We have indeed. Yes, we have indeed.
In PvP.
Yes.
Exclusively. And we'll use that as we, find balance issues that arise and try and use that to bring things more in line.
I think that's the super important point too, Hamish, is that we are tuning PvP separately, right? Weapon damage overrides, skill damage overrides, and even potentially skill behavior overrides.
Yeah.
To make sure that PvE can live and be happy, and then PvP can live and be happy.
An example of that skill behavior change would be like the Guardian drone.
Yes.
It lasts a lot. It can only block bullets for a very short amount of time in PvP.
In PvP,
now.
right.
Yeah, I'm really
So
interested
that's
to
the
see.
normalization.
Yeah, the 70 to 40% change is going to be really interesting to see
Yes.
for the
Sure.
PvP damage modifier. Is that going to be live on the PTS right now, or is that something that's coming in the second phase?
I know I couldn't tell you actually what phase it's in, honestly.
I am
Okay.
like 90% sure it's live. But
90%.
I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know 100%. I'm not 100%.
We'll find out. But
I
make
think-
sure, if you are experiencing those changes, make sure that you give feedback online so the folks over at Redstone can see what people think of that.
Yeah. We have had a lot of fun in the lab testing this stuff for sure.
And that modifier does show up in your UI, your inventory screen. If you toggle normalized stats and you look like your weapon damage, that 40% would be applied there instead of 70. So if you see your guns are all of a sudden doing have a really low value, if you look at the normalized stat, that's why. They're not actually nerfed, it's just the modifier is weaker.
There is one more thing we did, and that's because, well, I hate hipfire. I'll just be honest. But we're removing crit from hipfire. So if you enjoy running right up on a person and just unloading your LMG from the hip, that's fine. You're still going to do damage, but you're just not going to crit.
Okay. Does that
So,
go back to kind
sure.
of, we've talked about hipfire a lot in previous State of the Games, and you've always been a proponent for it should be kind of like your last ditch, like your last resort, right?
That's correct. And I think, Ryan, you're about to touch on something important.
Yeah, so it's not just in normalized play, and this is same thing with the PvP overrides. PvP overrides and like this crit behavior override when you're hip firing, that's applied in PvP. So it's not just normalized; it's in the ODZ as well. So it literally is whenever you're fighting another player. It's not normalized.
Right. It's only for PvP also.
Yeah.
Please, only for PvP. You can hit fire all you want in PvE. Doesn't bother me. But when you're playing PvP, we're just taking away your crit.
All right.
So
Good
that's
to
it for
know.
normalization.
All right. Yeah, you did touch on it before. Obviously, a lot of this happens in the dark zone. Are there
Yes.
changes that you guys are making to that whole dark zone experience?
There are some changes. There's a couple. There's a few.
Just a
I have a
couple?
huge list of it right here.
Yeah,
Nice.
there's a big list. I think, so the first thing is we're retuning the loot ratios in the dark zone. So this is the dark zone and the occupied dark zone. So there's going to be a lot less non-contaminated loot that drops. There's going to be a lot more contaminated loot that drops. We want people getting contaminated loot. We want them engaging in the extraction loop and seeing each other and doing all that fun stuff.
The named bosses are gonna
Yes,
always
guarantee.
drop the contaminated
Yeah,
item. Yeah.
named bosses will always guarantee a contaminated drop. And of course, higher level challenge landmark bosses have the ability to drop multiple items as well. So there's that. And to go along with that, actually there's one more thing I want to jump in before that. We're getting rid of the rogue cooldown. So for those of you not familiar, if you were going rogue, if you were rogue and you died, then we put a little timer on there that said you can't do bad things again, you bad person. And so we're taking that away. There's still a toggle cooldown.
Right. So you can't just be a little jerk and
Yeah.
fake.
Toggle. But
Debated.
if you are, yeah, if you're running with a group and you die and you run back, you're going to sync up automatically. There's no rogue cooldown anymore, so that's gone.
Okay, cool.
We're increasing the contaminated bag size also, so it will default to 6. And then we've made some perk changes. So the tier 1 perk increases the bag size to 8, and then the tier 10 perk that previously increased contaminated loot drop rates now takes your bag size to 10. So you'll have a lot more room to hold all that juicy contaminated gear.
Nice.
And because we got rid of the rogue cooldown, we've also changed tier 4 perk that used to reduce that rogue cooldown. Now it's a reduction in XP loss if you died by rogue. So we made those changes to the bags and the perks.
Nice. A lot of people have also been talking about, maybe sometimes the Dark Zone feels a little bit empty, wanting to make sure that they have those engagements. Is that something that the team at Red Storm are looking at and making sure that people do get the intended experience?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you for that. There's going to be a number of steps we take to really solidify the 12-player count that we have in the Dark Zones. And the first thing that we identified was we had too many brackets. We just had way too many brackets. So right now, it's just 1 to 30, and then everyone in world tier. So we're reducing it down to just 2 brackets, and we believe that's going to help a lot with player density. And then we have some other things planned down the line to make sure we guarantee that when you're in the Dark Zone, there's always 12 players. That won't be for this title update, but we've got more coming in the future.
Because when we play test these things, I mean, we're play testing with a server of 12,
yes.
right? So the Dark Zone's always full, and it's intense.
Yeah.
It's crowded.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty.
It's very interesting because when we do play, I mean, obviously we play in live and we experience all the things that players experience, right? But when we're playing here in the lab, and when we go in as solos, it's oftentimes difficult to get away from people.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that once we make sure that the servers are always at 12, that players understand what that feels like, that they have an opportunity to get away from players, to engage in some of those loops that don't involve players, and it's pretty tough. But it's a lot of fun. So we're working towards that with this as the first step, reducing the number of brackets down to 2.
Okay, so that means like a player count increase isn't on the table for right now?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, cool. I mean, I have plenty of people that like to communicate with me that have expressed their opinion that they think 16 or 20. I hear you, and I would say the same thing if I were in your seat, not looking at the data that we have, not looking at the challenges we're fixing, and also not playing with a guaranteed full server here at work.
A ODZ of 12 solo players is absolute insanity.
Yeah, it is absolute insanity.
You wouldn't want to add more players to that. Like it's pretty crazy.
So again, to summarize, no, a player count increase is not on the table. Yes, we absolutely hear you, and we absolutely experience what the community is experiencing, that Dark Zones are empty, because in fact they are. So we're taking steps to remedy that.
Yep.
Cool. Depending how you look at it, the occupied Dark Zone as well is either something that's really new for the division or really, really old, right? Like, I mean, this is looking back at kind of the early Division 1 days. For the occupied Dark Zone in Division 2, what are some of the directions you want to take that in? And how has it been going so far?
That's a good question. I think the first thing is the damage modifiers for the ODZ. You want to touch on those?
Yeah, so we added a ODZ specific PvP modifier. So like we have the global PvP modifier that we just now tuned to 40%. We have one now for the ODZ, but currently it is tuned to the exact same value as the global PvP modifier because that's what feels good. But what that means is that if if balance issues arise, we can tune that specifically and separately from the rest of the game if we need to.
Yeah, so we're reining in time to kill in the ODZ a little bit. It's a little too intense, a little too crazy. So we're going to make fights last a little bit longer in the ODZ, and Ryan's saying we can tune that separately from other things. So we'll always be very aware of the kill times in the ODZ.
And there's for skills as well.
Right.
Yeah. Skills and just gun modifiers.
We're cutting down the XP loss in the ODZ. It was a little too severe before, so now you're going to lose a little bit less when you die in the ODZ. But there's a couple other things that I might get in trouble for saying, but I'd love to say them to the community as it relates to the ODZ. So brace for love, everyone. So we're going to add Manhunt and Rogue back to the occupied Dark Zone, not in this update, but it's planned for sure. And I want everyone to know that we read you loud and clear, we understand your feelings, and agree with your expression. And so really, we're going to keep most of the rest of the Occupied Dark Zone the same, but we're going to add Rogue and Manhunt back. There won't be any Gray Rogue in there, so it's just going to be about Red Rogue and Manhunt, and just get that, almost like you said, that really old vanilla feel from the original game. Get that into the Occupied Dark Zone. We're also cutting down the number of AI patrols by an undetermined amount at this point, but we understand that those patrols can be brutal, and it can really interfere with some of that crazy PvP that players want to engage in, so we're going to trim those back as well and make sure that the PvE encounters are at the landmarks as much as possible, and that the PvP can happen where it's safe to PvP. So a lot of things coming in another update.
Okay, cool.
for
What
luck.
else do we have here? Obviously the landmarks as well. What's
Oh yeah.
that was Dark Zone,
generally
not
speaking.
Occupied.
Yeah, there's a couple more things we did in the DZs. Right, there was the cooldown to the landmark popping.
Right, and there was a case where landmarks would come right back as soon as you clear them, and you walked out, and they would pop right back up. So you could just turn around and walk back in. So we've added a cooldown so that doesn't happen. The cooldown's not very long. Like I think it's like a minute.
A minute.
Or something like yeah.
But it promotes a little more movement.
Yeah, it should let
Yes.
players move around a little bit more instead of just walk in and out.
Yeah, a big one for the end game Dark Zones, Hamish, is that we're tuning the AI damage and the armor for the end game DZs. High level, what we're saying is they're going to be less lethal. The AI is going to be less lethal, but they're going to have a little more survivability, right? So it should be in line with other challenging content that players face in the game, but they're not going to be so drastically deadly. And there was a bug too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. So part of that was the decision to tune it to make them beefier. The other part was that we had wanted them to be beefier anyway, but there was a bug to the scaling of the AI's armor that was making them significantly easier to kill. So now that has been fixed, and they will be much tougher.
Right.
Cool.
What else? Thieves' Den, we're making a change there. One of the draws to the Thieves' Den we have is you get special ammo in there if you go into the Thieves' Den, but you couldn't weapon swap. So it was frustrating for players because they couldn't get the special ammo for the weapon that they want. So we're allowing you to weapon swap. We've got a lot more to come for the Thieves' Den once again in upcoming updates. That's a veritable honeypot of wonderfulness that will just continue to get improved as we move forward. And then maybe the biggest thing, Ryan, why don't you hit this one? The biggest change we have to the Dark Zone.
Yeah, so we will be dropping items up to gear score 515 in the Dark Zone.
That's insane.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, we're allowing players to power creep over the max gear score if they go into the Dark Zone.
Right.
And there's no other place in the game that you can get, 515 or anything over 500. So the Dark Zone will be where you go to get that little last ounce of power for other activities.
And to that end, to circle back to normalization.
Yeah.
If you end up getting 515 items, which you should because they're awesome, we're going to normalize you back down to 500.
Okay.
But if you have skill, like I said earlier, if you have skill power, just enough skill power to unlock some mod outside of normalization, you will still have it when we normalize you, even if you bring your skill power back down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important for us that it's always going to be the max worlds here, which will be that number. In this case, it's 500. Because there are activities that will be unnormalized to come, we want to make sure that players who are at 515 can feel that power.
Yeah.
So that's why conflict and regular Dark Zones will be at 500 for now.
Okay, cool.
I think that's everything for the DZ.
It is. I would hate myself if I didn't ask Terry, since you seem to be in such a talkative mood. Do you,
Oh boy.
I'll try my luck. Do you have any future changes or wishes as it pertains to the Dark Zone experience? I know you kind of alluded to some of the things that, in the future, post TU3 that you're looking at. Any other kind of intentions for that whole experience that you're looking at?
I think how I can answer that question, Hamish, is the Dark Zone, the magic of the Dark Zone is the people. And so what we want to really do as we move forward with the Dark Zone experiences, make sure we leverage that. Make sure that what happens in the Dark Zone is all about the people. It's all about those unique moments that you experience. friend or foe, and activities that rely on other people to enrich them. So it's the one thing that we have in the Dark Zone that is nowhere else in the video game, because the rest of the video game is freaking amazing, right? So we want to leverage the people. So that's all I can say about that right now.
Cool. All right. Well, I tried my best. You're too good, man. What can you tell us about conflict? Obviously, a lot of PvP happens outside of the Dark Zone as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Where is conflict happening? Or what's happening there right now?
A lot of things. Not quite as many as the Dark Zone, but there are definitely things we want to touch on. A really big one, something that was interesting as we've gone on with our players' user experience and our UI. There was a decision pre-launch to cap enemy armor bars at a certain number of pips. I think it was 10.
Yeah, and that's just because when you have a bunch of pips, it could
Yeah.
get a little tough to see.
Yeah.
It looked a little weird.
It was
but-
visually messy, but then, hey, guess what? Players didn't have all the information. So it might seem like a no-brainer, but we've made it so now players' bars, enemies, and your teammates will properly reflect the amount of armor that they have. So if you go in and you have 468 billion armor and 900 million pips, we're going to reflect that.
Okay.
And so
And it's also easier to see the armor boost in conflict.
exactly.
You see all those pips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the boosts, for people that are familiar with conflict, we have those boosts that appear at different times in the match that can increase your damage or increase your armor. We're reducing the power of those boosts by 50% across the board, so they don't sway things quite as much, but they're still a tantalizing tertiary objective.
Yeah.
So we're reducing the power of those.
Okay.
We're synchronizing the team spawns a little bit more, so when you respawn with your wave, the likelihood that you're with a a teammate is increased. So to promote that team play and get less, run and die. We're making the NPC. Some of you may have never met this NPC, in fact, because he was kind of hidden underneath the platform. But we're making the conflict NPC more visible. We're moving him out and making him say more words to you and stuff like that over time. So you'll be able to see him. Some people probably didn't know he existed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've talked to him.
Yeah.
I've never talked to him on live.
Yeah, you've never talked to him?
Never.
Always just the mega map?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, skill cooldowns. It's something that wasn't happening before. The cooldowns were not carrying over on death, so that was promoting some play that we didn't like. Too many, let's see, you can just call them skill proxies in the world. So if you pop your skill and then die, that cooldown is going to be respected. So we're doing that as well.
I think there is a bug on the PTS with that, in that it's not resetting on match start. So if you have some super long cooldown for whatever, some turret or something, you might start a match with the cooldown active. That's fixed already, and that will be fixed when we patch it. But
Awesome.
in the PTS, that you
Fix
won't
some,
see that.
you just fixed some bugs right here.
That's right.
You just did it.
I did it
Nice.
while we were you were in the bathroom.
Wow, that's fantastic. So that's pretty much it for conflict right now. We're, of course, I have to say this every time. There's more things planned.
Sure.
There's more things, but those are the balance as it pertains to the balance. That's what's happening in conflict.
Nice. I'd love to move over to a part of a lot of the community conversation is surrounding exotics, talents, especially we've had a lot of feedback on, and also the gear. Could you tell me why you're looking to make some changes to those things, and then we'll get into a bunch of information.
Absolutely. If we start with exotics, it was your first topic. They're special, and we want exotics to feel special. I think it's important to note that the direction for the exotics isn't necessarily just, hey, do more damage, do it faster, harder, greater RPM. That's not the overall intent for every single exotic. A lot of the times when we step into designing a new exotic, it's about promoting a different style of gameplay, a different fun loop that might not be, I know I'm probably going to get smashed to this, but it's not the most efficient and the fastest way to kill a person. It's just something fun to do. So exotics aren't always going to be about raw DPS. They're going to be about styles of play.
Sure. That being said,
But that
they're
being
exotic,
said,
so they
they're
should-
exotic. So we're buffing the damage for all exotics across the board. So you're straight up through the barrel damage is going up for every single exotic. Ryan, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and we're going to circle back to normalization again. To that end, this is the first instance of us tuning a weapon specifically for PvP, and that is Pestilence. So we're buffing Pestilence just overall, but also in PvP it's been buffed even more.
Fantastic.
So and I think, I don't know if, we've buffed it.
Yeah. So good news for exotic owners.
Yeah.
They're getting stronger, and they feel really good.
Yeah. And this is the first set of buffs we're looking at for the exotics.
That's a very good point. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there's some great ideas on how we can further incentivize exotic use and make them more powerful, but I'm not going to give away the secrets there. But that's a very good point. Yeah. You talked about talents and gear and stuff, right, Amish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the intention with those?
Well, here's the intent, right? I think it's important for the community to understand, and it's important for us to make clear that we are in the process of aligning the game. And so a game this complicated, a game with this many knobs to turn, a game that has so much in it, it's a beast to keep track of, for sure. And so things get out of alignment, right? And if you happen to find something that's out of alignment and it feels really fun because maybe it's a little more powerful, we have to rein that in. And some people say, well, why don't you just buff everything? Well, in theory we could, but I think the point I'd like to get across is that there's only so high we can go, right? If you just continue to go up in a ramp and just buff everything, everything starts to become really flat. And then when we add new world tiers and how we have to scale that, if any of you have ever played World of Warcraft, you know that they continuously go through stat squishes because numbers get so big, things get so high, and they just get so overblown. So for right now, we align, and that's how I approach it, at least, is that things come down, things come up to create a level of alignment that creates a fun experience throughout the entire game. And that has to do with PvP, that has to do with PvE, that's whether you're playing co-op and solo. So I know people don't like it when we take their favorite thing and say, hey, that's 5% instead of 10. But it's an alignment, so every other thing is potentially more viable, as opposed to being a must pick. So we've done a lot here. Do you want to, how do you want to handle this, Amish? You want to run through it?
I was thinking I just rattle off this like rap style. And
do it.
Yeah.
If you guys
we
want
will sit here and listen.
Want to sit in the background? I've got a bit to get through. Pay attention. I will try and enunciate as best I can. But the talent balance pass. I'm going to take some water just quickly.
Yeah, get ready. Drink some water, hydrate.
Looks a little something like this. All right. Talent name and then changes. Unhinged, damage bonus reduced to 20% from 25%. Handling, negative reduced to 25% from 35%. All right. Strained, the talent, missing armor requirement increased from 10 to 15%. Increased to 10% from 5%. I've already messed it up. Frenzy, in PVE, reloading from empty grants 20% weapon damage instead of 35%, and 15% rate of fire for 3 seconds instead of 35% for 7 seconds. All right. In PvP, reloading from empty grants 15% weapon damage instead of 25%, and 15% rate of fire for 3 seconds instead of 25% for 7 seconds. And I guess that is the PvP and PvE specific changes that Ryan was just talking about. Preservation. In PvE, killing an enemy repairs 10% armor over 5 seconds instead of 5% for 3 seconds. Headshots improve the repair to 20% instead of 10%. In PvP, killing an enemy repairs 5% armor over 3 seconds. Headshots improve the repair to 15%, and it requires 7 defense attributes. The Spike talent, headshot kills grant 35% skill damage for 20 seconds instead of 25% for 10, so that's a huge buff. Requires 5 utility attributes instead of 3. Reformation. Headshot kills increase skill repair and healing by 50% for 20 seconds instead of 25% for 25 seconds, and requires 9 utility attributes. All right, on gear. Critical, reduced critical hit damage bonus from 8% to 5%. Surgical, reduced critical hit chance bonus from 8% to 5%. The Safeguard talent. Reduced healing bonus from 75% to 50%, reduced duration from 7 to 5 seconds. Set requirement changed from less than 5 to less than 4 offensive attributes. The Clutch talent, increased health gained per critical hit from 15% to 20%. Reduced armor gained per critical hit from 2% to 1%. The Spotter talent. Increased weapon damage to pulsed enemies from 10% to plus 20%. Requirement changed from 3 to 5 utility attributes. The Kneecap talent. Shooting an enemy in the legs had a 10% chance to apply bleed. Now it's changed to 15%. The Entrench talent. Headshots from cover repair increased from 5 to 10% of your armor. The Patience talent. After being in cover for 5 seconds, armor repairs by 5% every 1 second instead of every 3 seconds, and the requirement has been increased from 5 to 9 defense attributes. The Unbreakable talent, again, this is split between PvE and PvP. In PvE, 70% of max armor is repaired when your armor is depleted. Armor kits used within the next 7 seconds are not consumed, instead of 25% and 5 seconds. All right, for PvP, it's 25% of max armor is repaired when your armor is depleted, and armor kits used within the next 7 seconds are not consumed, instead of 15% and 5 seconds. Now requires 11. That's 11 defense attributes. No other talents affecting armor kits as well. The Bloodsucker, again, split between PvE and PvP. Depleting an enemy's armor adds a stack of 25% bonus armor for 10 seconds instead of 20% for 20 seconds. The max stack increased from 5 to 6. In PvP, depleting an enemy's armor adds a stack of 20% bonus armor for 5 seconds with a max stack of 5, which requires 11 defense attributes instead of 5 offense. So that's a big change, actually. Berserk in PvE, and this is only PvE from what I can see, the 10% weapon damage for every 20% of max armor depleted instead of 10% of max armor depleted. All right. Requires 11 offense attributes and AR, SMG, or LMG equipped. Bloodlust is split between PvE and PvP. In PvE, swapping weapons within 3 seconds of a kill grants 35% weapon damage for 5 seconds instead of 25% for 10 seconds. In PvP, swapping weapons within 3 seconds of a kill grants 20% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Used to require less than 3 defense attributes, but now requires 9 offense attributes instead. And the Blacksmith talent, killing an enemy with your sidearm repairs 50% of your armor, raised from 25%, and it can occur once every 15 seconds, increased from 10. It requires 11 defense attributes instead of 3. Whew. Okay, I know people have a bunch of questions, and we're going to talk about a couple of those specifically. So I didn't have the PvP changes listed for Berserk here, and I see people have been asking about Berserk in PvP. Do you Redstorm folks have any information about that?
I mean, I can double check and get it to you, but I'm pretty sure that means it's the same in PvE as it is in PvP.
Okay, just as a refresher, 10% weapon damage for every 20% of max armor depleted instead of 10% of max armor depleted.
Right, so
All right.
effectively having it.
Okay.
One other thing for patience, just to clarify the patience change. After being in cover for 5 seconds, armor repairs by 5% every 1 second. And it used to be after being in cover for 3 seconds.
Okay.
I think is what the...
Okay, that's what I meant there.
From. Yeah.
You did an excellent job, Amish.
That was a lot of stuff.
Ooh, I mean, I'm just reading. It's not.
Yeah, but your accent, you know,
It just sounded
it
so
just sounds
good.
so good.
I try my best. So just to clarify, if I can understand it, then it's probably a good thing. After being in cover for 5 seconds with patience, the armor repairs by 5% every 1 second. And what you're saying is that starts, that used to start after 3 seconds, and now it starts after 5.
Right, right.
Okay, cool. All right, and again, as a refresher, that requirement has been increased from 5 defense attributes to 9 defense attributes. Okay, so there's I'm sure someone's going to go ahead and transcribe all of that. I don't envy you with that task. Could we just get a couple of, just chat a little bit about the PTS? What does it mean for you when you are looking at people's experience with testing these things?
It means everything. I mean, yeah, we have specific goals in mind, and we have direction across all the studios, you know, for a specific type of experience. But at the end of the day, we're making this for millions of players, and the idea that they have an opportunity to get onto BTS and to let us know how they feel before before it's done, before it's all said and done. It's a wonderful opportunity that we have that I'm so happy we built the infrastructure for in the original game, and that we've now 35 days in kicked off the PTS. So
That's crazy. That's a lot quicker than the first game for sure.
Yeah, so much quicker.
Yeah.
So I love it.
One of the things that I think, just for the people out there who haven't played a PTS before, it's really important that you give clear and concise feedback as it pertains to all of these things. These conversations are really, really important for the future health of the game, and also having your voice heard really helps us make sure that we can implement some of those things. I will say some, because this feedback has to be taken in by us, and we do with it what we can. But not everything that people ask for will be implemented, because we have to, do that whole calculation, right?
Of course. And because we didn't implement it, doesn't mean it was a bad idea. Just an idea out of context. There's a lot of things that aren't necessarily exposed to the community, and we read them all. I mean, I know you read and watch every single video that comes out, Amish. So
I try.
I know. It's absolutely.
we talked a bit about, like, there's been a lot of videos come out recently, and we talk about them amongst ourselves. So there's a lot of good things floating out around there on the internet, whether they be forum posts or tweets or stream clips or YouTube videos and that sort of thing. So yes,
right.
Everyone here is listening. There's obviously some other improvements, more general, not as it pertains to PvP, like the text chat is one of those other things. But
yes, there are
do you guys
some
want to
text
chat about
stuff.
that real quick?
Yeah, that's a quick one. Just some improvements across the board here. I'll just read them straight from the sheet. Players can toggle displaying personal and group loot drops now. Text chat will now lose focus after sending a message.
Which is huge.
That's the big thing. You don't have to unfocus it manually.
Hold W. And
and just go da 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 da. The group tab will be populated with all raid members when queuing for a raid, and we have improved feedback when attempting invalid actions in text chat. So a few of those things.
Cool. All right. Well, sorry, Ryan.
One more thing. Hold on.
So I kind of want to give some more background into some of those talent changes.
Okay.
Especially
Please.
the nerfs to some of the really, fun.
Sure.
Damage dealing talents.
Yeah.
So I mean, like Terry said, these changes aren't just we're nerfing this thing because it's too good, right? It's an alignment. So this isn't the only thing that's changing. We're changing the health values of NPCs and the damage values of NPCs too. So just because like right now you have to have Berserk to even do enough damage on heroic or whatever. Now we're bringing those values, the health values down because and so that way you don't have to be speccing into these talents that are way too powerful when we bring them back into alignment. So it's not just we're nerfing this because it's too much, it's too good, and now we're going to make everything way harder. It's everything. It's none of this is in isolation, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. Right?
Yeah, it is really
point.
easy to look at these on paper and say, oh, that's a huge nerf and that's a huge buff. I even mentioned those things myself. But like you say, we need to get feedback on not just what's on the paper, but also what the bigger picture is.
Yeah, I mean, the slew of other changes that are coming to the game that we haven't even talked about. I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of improvement that's occurring across all of our studios. So this just happens to be us because we just happen to be in front of the camera right now, but there's so much more coming.
Yeah. I would implore people, if you do want your voice to be heard, play the PTS. I mean, it is PC only. We've talked about exactly why that is before. If you can't play it, watch it. You can. People will be streaming it and that sort of thing. And make sure that rather than just talking about it, privately with your friends, let us know on the forums, on Twitter, on anywhere you can reach out to be a part of those conversations within the community, because those are the things that really shape the game going forward. Guys, do you want to take a look at some of the agent highlights from the week? I'm pretty sure that the technology we've got rigged up, you'll be able to actually see some of these some of these images. You'll stick around for a few minutes?
100%.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, let's take a look at the first agent highlight of the week. What's this one? Ooh, okay, yeah, we've got an update from Umbra on the tabletops, the tabletop minis. I might have missed a message. I've been begging to get one of these to paint. I would love to actually live stream some painting of these because I need to kind of up my mini painting skills. But those are super cool. If you want to see more on that, SHD Umbra on Twitch. You guys play any tabletop mini games?
I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons actually, and depending on the group I run with, sometimes we use minis, sometimes we don't. So I do. I haven't painted one in a long time, so I agree with you. It would be nice to chop up those skills and get them going again. But I do love me some minis.
I don't play any of them, but I paint some of the minis.
Nice.
So kind of the weird
Nice.
one that way. It's so expensive. Good
All
God.
right, up
But
next.
those are beautiful.
What have we got next? Let's take a look. Oh damn, damn
Nice.
those look thick,
I need
super
those.
heavy. Those obviously the Rogue and Manhunt ones, and also the SHD Phoenix. Theo Pro on Twitter. If you want to go check out more of those, he makes
Wow.
them all by himself.
Wow. Do we know what the
definitely-
material is?
I don't know. It looks like legit. It's either legit metal. We'll have to find out from Theo Pro. But they look to have some weight to them. I don't know. Maybe it's just
really
a
cool.
good picture, or they're synthetic, like plastic, and they're just treated really well. But they look. I think
Very nice.
Yeah.
They look at least very close to something heavy. And I think
Yeah,
we have
that's
one more.
Okay.
We got one more. All right, let's take a look at our. Oh my God, cute! Very
That's great.
topical. From days
That
where
is
you,
very topical. Yes.
you guys have been following the whole the black hole picture.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
You know, there's a very, I guess it kind of intersects with a lot of people's interests in the gaming community, the whole space travel stuff. But I've seen some really, I think PCMR did a really good one that was like, this is way too topical. Reveal at E3, like actual release. Wow.
That's funny.
Wow.
So basically what NASA's saying is NASA confirmed the existence of hunters in space.
Exactly. 100%.
That's
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are great.
Yeah. Fantastic. I just want to thank you both again, Ryan and Terry, for joining today. That was a chunk of information. These streams are usually half an hour, and we packed a lot into 45 minutes. So
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I think it's really great to be able to express to people that now there's an incentive to go into the DZ, that we're paying attention to all the things that are happening with the game, and incentivizing people to explore other areas of opportunity for gear and to have fun with more areas of the game. So this is great for us too. Thank you very much.
100%. And you are often backseating on Anthony's streams here on a Friday. I don't think this Friday though. It's a public holiday here in Sweden, but
That's correct. Not this Friday, but yeah, generally I pop in. I try to pop in, and those are much more casual, where we talk about pizza, and we don't reveal hidden secrets. We keep those for state of the game, but we do have fun together. Yeah.
But I mean, it's a good way for you. I imagine I love doing the streams because it's a great way to listen to the community. Do you find find the same thing?
Absolutely. I
Fantastic.
think there's a great participation in those, and I mean, Ampy's wonderful, and really just being able to discuss more high-level topics and some of the reasons why we make some choices we make, and just kind of explore and understand the industry itself, and how we go about making some of these choices. So it is fun, and then we get to talk to the community too.
Okay, cool. I'm just this just in. I'm getting a message. Could you please clarify a little bit about the 515 gear score creep that we talked a little bit about in the dark zone? Are we unsure of where else that will happen in the game? Because I mean, the first thing that people might think is that's also in the raid or other top level content. Do we know yet, or is it?
Well,
is
I know.
that something we need to think about later on? Okay.
I think the best thing as the community can I'm sure there's some people that ruffled their feathers a little bit. That okay, if you want to get over 500, you're gonna have to go into the DZ, and the
I mean,
DZ.
you do get it from the field proficiency caches too.
Not
Not 515, but like you get a little bit. more,
Yeah,
I think.
the DZ is not as scary as it used to be. Believe me, we've taken a lot of steps to make it a lot more friendly. But it's still the DZ, so I understand if players don't want to go in there. But if you look at it, I don't want to spoil anything, but if we're saying that you can get a power creep from the DZ, we've essentially, we're making that something that we're identifying as a tool.
Sure.
And so there could be other activities that come out in the future that allow similar power creep, or more. There's a lot of things to weigh as it pertains to balance, and the more power creep that we allow in a world tier, how does that affect any potential new world tier? I'm not confirming or denying that there is one, but I'm just saying if you're creeping towards another limit, that's going to affect how we balance the game in the future. So right now, the first way you can creep over that cap is in the dark zone. So if you're chasing that number, if you want that power, then you're going to have to find a way to go in there, get your group together, and tackle those gameplay loops. I think they're pretty fun. So that's the way now, and there may be more later.
Cool. No, and that's a conversation that we can have going forward as well. Again, reminder to people, we are 35 days after the launch of the game, so there's going to be a lot to talk about over the weeks, months, years as we sit around and keep going on with Division. All right, we're running over time. Terry and Ryan, thank you so much for joining today. We'll have to
pleasure.
get you
Yeah,
back on.
We love you.
It was fun. Oh, we love you too.
Thank you.
Oh, what a nice note to end on. That's so nice. All right, see you later, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Okay, just before heading off, I just want to again reiterate that the PTS is now live. That is testing for the upcoming TU3 update. We do want to make sure that we get a bunch of testing in on that so it's the best experience for all of our players. That does mean that the raid and all of the content for TU3 is going to have to be thoroughly tested before that comes out. So next month, TU3 will be happening.